Lorelei's hands were shaking before the coffee pot even slipped. She watched it fall in slow motion, knowing exactly what would happen next but unable to stop it. The crash silenced every conversation in the restaurant. For men in expensive suits turned to look at her with expressions that made her blood run cold. And then her manager stepped out of the office, phone already in her hand, making the call that would end everything. The coffee pot slipped from Lorelei's fingers and shattered across the marble floor. Hot liquid spread in every direction. Her heart stopped. Not again. Are you kidding me right now? The man in the $1,000 suit stood up, brushing invisible drops from his sleeve. His three companions leaned back in their chairs, watching her like she was entertainment they'd paid for. Lorelei dropped to her knees immediately, her worn black pants soaking up the coffee. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Let me clean this up right away. Her hands shook as she reached for the broken pieces. This was the third mistake she'd made this week. Manager Patricia had already warned her twice. One more incident and she was done. Gone. Just like that? You should be sorry. The second man, older with gray temples, crossed his arms. Do you know how much this suit costs? Probably more than you make in 6 months. The other two laughed. It was a sharp sound that cut through the quiet morning air of the restaurant. Other diners turned to look. Some shook their heads. Others went back to their eggs and toast like nothing was happening. Lorelei kept her eyes down. Her daughter's face flashed in her mind. 7 years old with bright eyes and a smile that made everything worth it. Except Rosalind was sick again. The medicine cost $200 this time. $200 Lorelei didn't have. She can't even hold a coffee pot steady. The third man, youngest of the group with slicked back hair, grinned at his friends. Why do they even hire people like this? People like this? Lorelei looked up before she could stop herself. The words came out quiet but clear. The young man's smile widened. People who can't do basic tasks. Maybe you should find work somewhere else. Somewhere that doesn't require coordination. Heat rushed to Lorelei's face. She wanted to say something back. Wanted to tell them she'd been on her feet for 12 hours. That she'd worked a double shift because another server called in sick. That she hadn't eaten since yesterday morning because every dollar went toward Rosalind's doctor visits. But she didn't say any of that. She just picked up the broken ceramic pieces and placed them carefully on her tray. I'll get you fresh coffee right away, she whispered. And I'll pay for any cleaning your suit needs. The gray-haired man snorted. You'll pay? With what? Your tips. He turned to his companions. This is what happens when restaurants lower their standards. They let anyone serve. Lorelei stood up slowly. The room tilted a little. She hadn't just skipped breakfast. She'd skipped dinner too. The dizzy spell passed after a moment and she steadied herself against the table. Are you going to faint now? The first man asked. That would be perfect. Really complete the show. More laughter. It echoed in Lorelei's ears as she walked toward the kitchen. Each step felt heavy. Her shoes had holes in the soles but she couldn't afford new ones yet. Maybe next month. Maybe the month after if Rosalind stayed healthy. Patricia was waiting by the kitchen doors. Her expression said everything. Lips pressed tight. Arms crossed. Eyes hard. Lorelei. Office. Now. Please. Lorelei's voice cracked. Please, I'll be more careful. I've heard it before. Patricia turned and walked toward the back. Come on. The kitchen staff watched as Lorelei followed. Some looked sympathetic. Others looked away. Everyone knew what an office visit meant after multiple mistakes. Patricia's office was small and cramped. Papers covered every surface. A calendar on the wall showed the date circled in red. Rent was due in 3 days. Sit down. Patricia didn't sit herself. She stood behind her desk like a judge about to deliver a sentence. Lorelei sat. Her legs felt like water. I can't keep doing this, Patricia said. You're a good person, Lorelei. I know you work hard. But this is a business. Those men out there are regulars. They spend thousands here every month. And you just gave them a reason to complain. It was an accident. The words sounded weak even to Lorelei's own ears. I haven't slept much. My daughter is sick and everyone has problems. Patricia's voice wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. I was just tired. I have a restaurant to run. I have standards to maintain. I've given you chances. 3 of them now. Lorelai felt tears building behind her eyes. She blinked hard. Crying wouldn't help. Crying never helped. Please, she said again. I need this job. I need the insurance. Rosalind needs her medicine and the hospital bills. I'm sorry. And Patricia did sound sorry. A little. I have to let you go. You can finish your shift today, but that's it? The words hit like a physical blow. Lorelai opened her mouth, but no sound came out. The tears she'd been fighting spilled over. They ran down her cheeks in hot streams. I understand, she finally managed. Because what else could she say? Begging hadn't worked. Explaining hadn't worked. Nothing worked when people had already made up their minds. She stood up on shaking legs and walked out of the office. The kitchen staff looked at her. They knew. Word spread fast in restaurants. Back on the floor, the 4 men were still laughing about something. Probably still talking about her. Still making jokes about the clumsy waitress who couldn't do her job right. Lorelai went to their table with a fresh pot of coffee. Her hand trembled as she poured. She was so focused on keeping it steady that she didn't notice the restaurant door opening. Didn't see the man who walked in wearing clothes that made the 4 businessmen's suits look cheap. Here's your coffee, gentlemen. Her voice came out hollow. Empty. The gray-haired man looked up at her with a smirk. Try not to drop this one. His companions laughed again. That same sharp, cutting sound. But then the laughter stopped. All 4 men went quiet at once. Their faces changed. Eyes widened. Mouths opened slightly. Lorelai turned to see what they were staring at. A man stood near the entrance. Maybe 60 years old with silver hair and a face that commanded attention without trying. His suit probably cost more than Lorelai's car. More than everything she owned combined. He was looking directly at their table. His expression was unreadable. The first businessman stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. Mr. Sterling. What a surprise. We didn't know you'd be here today. Sterling. The name meant something. Lorelai could see it in the way the 4 men suddenly looked nervous. The way they straightened their ties and fixed their posture. The man called Sterling walked toward them. His shoes made soft sounds against the floor. Each step was deliberate. Controlled. Gentlemen, he said. His voice was quiet, but it filled the space anyway. I happened to be passing by. Saw the commotion through the window. His eyes moved to Lorelai. Are you all right, miss? Lorelai didn't know what to say. This stranger was asking if she was okay. Actually asking like he cared about the answer. I'm fine, she whispered. She spilled coffee on us, the young businessman said quickly. We were just. I heard what you were doing. Sterling's gaze moved back to the 4 men. Something in his expression made them all take a step back. I heard every word through that window. Tell me something. Do you treat all service workers this way? Or just the ones you think can't fight back? The restaurant went completely silent. Every diner was watching now. Every server had stopped moving. The gray-haired man tried to smile. Mr. Sterling, we were just joking around. No harm meant. Just having a bit of fun. Fun. Sterling repeated the word like he was tasting something rotten. You think humiliating someone trying to do their job is fun? She made a mistake, the first businessman said. His voice was defensive now. Good. Multiple mistakes. We're good customers here. We have a right to... You have a right to be treated with respect when you show respect. Sterling looked at Lorelai again. What's your name? Lorelai. Her voice barely worked. Lorelai. He said it like he was memorizing it. How long have you worked here? 3 years. And are you normally this careless? She shook her head. No, sir. I'm just tired. My daughter is sick and I've been working extra shifts to cover the medical bills and She stopped. Why was she telling him this? Why did it matter? Sterling nodded slowly. Then he turned back to the 4 men. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Harder. Cold. I know who each of you are. Richard Chen from Lakeside Investments. Marcus Webb from Webb & Associates. David Park from TechCore. and Jeffrey Mills from the law firm downtown. He paused. Let the names sink in. You all do business in this city. You all have reputations to protect. The four men looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. Here's what's going to happen, Sterling continued. You're going to apologize to Lorelei. A real apology. Then you're going to leave a tip that reflects actual remorse. And then you're going to think very carefully about how you treat people who serve you. Mr. Sterling, Richard Shin started. I'm not finished. Sterling's voice cut through the interruption like a knife. If I hear about any of you treating service workers this way again, I'll make sure everyone in your business circles knows exactly what kind of men you are. Do you understand? Silence. Long and heavy. Then all four men nodded. They turned to Lorelei. Each one mumbled an apology. The words sounded forced and hollow, but they said them anyway. Then Richardson pulled out his wallet and placed $500 bills on the table. Sterling watched until all four men had left the restaurant. Then he looked at Patricia, who had come out of the back office when she heard the commotion. I believe you were about to fire this young woman, he said. Patricia's face went white. How did you? I heard that too. Sterling's expression softened slightly. I'm asking you to reconsider. Everyone makes mistakes when they're exhausted and worried about their sick child. Maybe what she needs is support, not punishment. Patricia looked at Lorelei. Then at Sterling. Then back at Lorelei. Of course. Lorelei, we'll talk later. Take the rest of the day off. Paid. Lorelei couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. This was impossible. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. Sterling turned to face her fully. His eyes were kind. Sad in a way that said he understood more than he was saying. Come with me, he said gently. Let's sit down. I think we should talk. Lorelei followed Sterling to a quiet table near the window. Her legs moved on their own because her brain had stopped working properly. Nothing about the last 5 minutes made sense. People like him didn't defend people like her. That wasn't how the world worked. He pulled out a chair for her. She sat down slowly, like the seat might disappear if she moved too fast. Sterling sat across from her. Up close, she could see the lines around his eyes. The way his expensive suit couldn't hide how tired he looked. He ordered 2 coffees from a passing server who nearly tripped over her own feet rushing to help him. You don't have to do this, Lorelei said quietly. Whatever this is. I appreciate what you did, but you don't owe me anything. Maybe I owe someone like you everything. Sterling's voice was soft. Distant. Like he was talking to someone who wasn't there. Tell me about your daughter. Rosalind, you said? Lorelei's breath caught. How did you know her name? You mentioned it. Just now. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Tell me about her. So Lorelei did. She didn't know why. Maybe because he actually seemed to care. Maybe because she was so tired of holding everything inside. The words spilled out like water through a broken dam. She told him about Rosalind's asthma. About the attacks that came without warning. About sitting in emergency rooms at 3 a.m, watching her daughter struggle to breathe while doctors worked and insurance companies denied coverage. About choosing between medicine and rent. Between food and doctor visits. Sterling listened to every word. He didn't interrupt. Didn't check his phone. Didn't look away. He just listened like listening was the most important thing in the world. I'm sorry, Lorelei said when she finally stopped talking. You didn't ask for my life story. I don't know why I told you all that. Because you needed to tell someone. Sterling's hands were folded on the table. She noticed he wore a wedding ring. Old and worn like he'd been wearing it forever. And because I asked, how much do you need? What? For the medical bills. For your daughter's medicine. How much? Lorelei shook her head quickly. No, I can't take money from you. That's not why I told you about. I know it's not. Sterling reached into his jacket and pulled out a checkbook. An actual checkbook? Lorelei hadn't seen one of those in years. But I'm asking anyway. How much? I don't even know who you are. The words came out desperate. Confused. Why would you help me? Sterling's hand stopped moving. The pen hovered over the check. For a long moment he just stared at the blank paper. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Heavier. I had a daughter once, he said. Her name was Catherine. She was 7 years old. Same age as Rosalind. Lorelai's heart sank. She knew what was coming before he said it. She had asthma too. Sterling's eyes were wet now. He blinked, but the tears came anyway. I was building my business back then. Working all the time. Too much. My wife kept telling me to slow down. To spend more time at home. But I thought providing for them meant working harder. Making more money. Securing our future. He stopped. Took a breath. The restaurant sounds faded away until it felt like they were the only two people in the world. Catherine had an attack one night. A bad one. My wife called me at the office. I was in a meeting. An important meeting with investors. I told her I'd be home in an hour. Just one more hour to close the deal. Lorelai felt tears building in her own eyes. She died before I got there. Sterling's voice broke. My little girl died asking for her daddy, and I was too busy making money to be there. Too busy to hold her hand. Too busy to tell her I loved her. A sob escaped Lorelai's throat before she could stop it. I'm so sorry. It's been 23 years. Sterling wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. 23 years, and I still see her face every single day. Still hear my wife screaming at me that I chose work over our daughter. She left me 6 months later. I don't blame her. I couldn't save Catherine. Couldn't be there when she needed me most. But maybe I can help you be there for Rosalind. He started writing on the check. His hand moved steadily despite the tears on his face. After Catherine died, I sold my company. Made more money than I knew what to do with. Spent years trying to figure out why I was still here when she wasn't. Then I realized something. I couldn't bring her back. But I could help other parents. Other children. I could make sure no one else lost what I lost because they couldn't afford medicine. Because they were too tired to think straight. Because the world decided their child's life wasn't worth fighting for. He tore the check from the book and slid it across the table. Lorelai looked down at it. The number made her dizzy. $50,000. Written in neat, careful handwriting. I can't. Her hands shook. This is too much. It's not enough. Sterling stood up slowly. It won't bring Catherine back. Won't make up for all the time I lost with her. But it will help Rosalind. It will help you. And maybe that means something. Lorelai stood too. She didn't think about it. Just moved forward and wrapped her arms around the stranger who had saved her life. Sterling hugged her back. He held on tight like he was hugging his own daughter. Like he was finally getting to do what he couldn't do 23 years ago. Thank you, Lorelai whispered. Thank you. Thank you. They stood like that for a long time. Two broken people holding each other up in the middle of a restaurant that had gone completely silent. Other diners watched with tears in their eyes. Some were recording on their phones. The moment was too powerful to ignore. When they finally pulled apart, Sterling reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. This has my personal number on it, he said. Call me if you need anything else. If Rosalind needs a specialist. If you need help with insurance. Anything at all. Promise me you'll call? Lorelai took the card with shaking hands. I promise. Sterling nodded. Then he looked at Patricia, who was crying behind the hostess stand. Take care of her, he said. It wasn't a request. I will, Patricia said quickly. I absolutely will. Sterling walked toward the door. He moved slower than when he came in. Like carrying the weight of his story had made him older somehow. At the door, he turned back one more time. Be there for her, Lorelai. Be there for every moment. Every scraped knee and bad dream and piano recital. Because time moves faster than you think. And you never know which moment will be your last. Then he was gone. The door closed behind him and Lorelai was left standing in the middle of the restaurant holding a check that would change everything. Patricia walked over slowly. Lorelai, I'm so sorry. About earlier. About everything. You're not fired. You never were. And I'm giving you a raise. And better shifts. Whatever you need. Lorelai barely heard her. She was staring at the check. At the number that represented hope. Security. A future where she didn't have to choose between her daughter's health and keeping the lights on. The other servers gathered around her. They hugged her and cried with her and told her how happy they were. Some of them had their own struggles. Their own sick kids and unpaid bills. They understood what this meant. Lorelai pulled out her phone with trembling hands. She called Rosalind's school. Asked them to bring her daughter to the office. Said it was important. 20 minutes later, Rosalind walked into the restaurant holding her teacher's hand. Her small face was worried. She thought something bad had happened. Lorelai dropped to her knees and pulled her daughter into her arms. She held on so tight Rosalind squeaked. "Mom? What's wrong? Are you okay?" "I'm perfect, baby." Lorelai kissed her daughter's hair. Her face. Her hands. "Everything is perfect now. We're going to get you the best doctors. The best medicine. You're going to be healthy and strong, and we're never going to worry about money for your treatments again." "Really?" Rosalind's eyes went wide. "How?" "An angel came to visit today." Lorelai smiled through her tears. "An angel who lost his own daughter and decided to save mine instead." She looked out the window. Sterling was standing across the street, watching. When he saw her looking, he raised his hand in a small wave. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Lorelai waved back even though he couldn't see her anymore. She held Rosalind close and thought about what Sterling had said, about being there for every moment, about time moving faster than you think. She'd been so focused on surviving that she'd forgotten to live. Forgotten that the moments mattered more than the money. That Rosalind didn't need a perfect life. She just needed her mom. Present. Awake. "Come on, baby," Lorelai said softly. "Let's go home. Let's make dinner together. And then we'll read that book you like 3 times instead of once. And tomorrow we'll go to the park and feed the ducks. And the day after that we'll do something else. Anything you want. Because we have time now. We have so much time." Rosalind smiled. That bright, beautiful smile that made everything worth it. As they walked out of the restaurant together, hand in hand, Lorelai thought about Sterling. About the daughter he'd lost. About the father he'd become too late. She thought about the 4 men who'd laughed at her. About how they'd probably already forgotten her name. About how none of it mattered anymore. Because sometimes the worst day of your life turns into the best one. Sometimes strangers become angels. Sometimes losing everything helps you see what really matters. And sometimes, just sometimes, the world decides you're worth saving after all. As mother and daughter walked out together, hand in hand, Lorelai realized that sometimes our darkest hours lead us to our brightest blessings. Sterling had lost everything, but in helping Lorelai, he'd found a piece of redemption he'd been searching for 23 years. The 4 men who mocked her had no idea they'd set in motion something beautiful. Have you ever had someone show up in your life exactly when you needed them most? If this story reminded you that good people still exist, smash that like button and share it with your friends and family. Subscribe so you never miss stories about real compassion and unexpected heroes. Tell us in the comments, what act of kindness changed your life? We'll see you next time.